Hi all, this is Skate, and I want to touch on a good old classic tank. It's the American T30, the Tier 9 tank destroyer. Again, just like what I mentioned in my pattern video recently, this is a solid tank. It's a reliable tank. It's one of those tanks that have been in the game since the dawn, and will remain a tank which people keep in their garages, and it's a tank I'll never sell. Quite simply, it gives it all. With that massive 155mm, it's got the giggle factor. It's familiar if you have a T34 premium tank. It's not a horrible grind from stock. In fact, it's pretty much in stock form a T34 from Tier 8, just with 1,000 more damage per minute. It's a good tank. It really is. And it's a tank destroyer, yet I just completely drove past the tank destroyer spawn, and I'm up there, well, with the mediums. And the reason being is because this is a tank destroyer, you don't have to play on the back line. Yes, its hull is abysmal in terms of its strength, but its turret, well, that's where the magic happens. It has a monstrously thick gun mantlet and very, very good frontal turret armor. It has got a little weak spot just in front of the commander's hatch. It's a tiny little triangle. If you can hit it, it's an easy pen. However, the challenge is hitting that. Also, the hatch is a weak spot, and if you can't get to those and they slightly elevate too much, or if you're shooting at one of these things and they elevate a little bit too much, go for the turret ring. Those weaknesses aside, only high penetrating guns are the things you need to worry about in this, because the high penetrating guns can penetrate the cheeks just as they're a little bit flat next to the gun mantlet. But at this sort of range, they would seriously struggle to hit those spots. You can see the bits because they're the bits with the little nodules on as it goes round the mantlet. So if you're pointing on one of these things, aim for one of those spots. But like I said, at this sort of range, it doesn't mean you're always going to hit them, which is what makes the turret on this thing so formidable and so reliable. It's just a monster of a turret. And then you got to combine that turret with the top gun on this thing, which has 640 alpha, and well, it makes a mess of anything it points at. And that's because a Tier 9, 276mm of penetration on its standard ammo, 320 on its APCR, and 90 on its HE means low tank targets, even like that E75, if my HE hit that time, would have made a mess of him. And that is the beauty of these huge alpha guns, is that ammo selection. You've got a choice of crazy high penetration with, what, APCR, you're still doing 554 average damage. Or, if you don't even want to penetrate and it's low hit points, switch to your HE and make a big old mess of the front of their tank. Those things are what makes this tank absolutely sing. What makes this tank a big old huge weakness is the hull in which it is driving on. If you just assume anything which shoots at that hull is going to penetrate you, you should be thinking along the right lines, because with that turret I've explained, with that gun, and 10 degrees of gun depression, there is no reason why you can't stick this thing on ridgelines and just make it sing. I mean, if somebody's pushing on you and you're on a ridgeline, you really want to be trying to hold them back by tracking them and not letting them get to the vulnerable parts of your tank, because that is the reality. It's very vulnerable on the hull. I mean, the front can be penetrated by anything with AP. Even Tier 8s, you'll get lucky sometimes when you're using the full gun depression. It increases the thickness of the front plate. But if you just assume that your hull, without fail, is going to get penetrated, you are thinking on exactly the right lines. Other things to be careful of. The back has no armor whatsoever. You can HE the hell into it. And if you can't get to the back of this thing, you can shoot AP to the sides of the track all day long, granted. But one thing worth trying, put a HE, see that strip just above the tracks? You can HE that with a lot of tanks and penetrate it. It's very fun to do when you're driving a T49. But that's a very good way of dealing with this tank. But it's also something you need to consider when you are driving this tank, that's something you need to watch out for. And again, as long as you're only giving people your turrets, it's going to be very tough to deal with this tank. In terms of playstyle, now I mentioned this fun fact in my previous video, and 90% of the people who follow this already know this, but this was when World of Tanks on PC was first created, the tier 10 heavy tank. Now that, to me, gives a very obvious perspective on what sort of playstyle you should be expecting with this tank. It's a heavy tank with a bad hull, thus it belongs on ridges. The other thing to consider, something I didn't mention when talking about the turret, is that hatch on top is quite big, but when you're using the full 10 degrees of gun depression, you start to hide that hatch on top. Also, you can lean the tank further back on a ridge, so although you can't shoot at a target, it's baiting them to shoot at you when they can't see the hatch at all. And I'll show you a perfect example of what I mean in the next video, but I lean further back. If you imagine I'm trying to act as if the tank's got 13 degrees or 15 degrees of gun depression, you lean the tank much further back, and that hatch is nigh on impossible. It's impossible to hit, end of story. And at that point in time, the turret is godlike, and then once they've taken their shot on you, you then rocket forward that couple of degrees more, just so you can get your gun down onto them, and you return fire, and they get back into said position. It works very well. But yeah, I can't express this enough. Don't treat this like a tank destroyer. Treat it like a heavy tank. Same with the T110E4. Treat it like a second line heavy tank. This, it's not second line. If the second line is out in the open, you're in the wrong place in a T30. You want to be just hiding the hull every single place you go. If you can find a ridge where there's numerous targets, sit there and enjoy said ridge. If there is no targets to shoot at, move to the next ridge. And in terms of playstyle, easy as that. I say easy. The key thing is making sure people do not push you out of that position you're trying to get yourself in. Once you're in a hard position, a tough position to get you out, people are going to try and capitalize on your longer loading time. And that's where you need to be careful with this tank, because once you've made a shot, if you are too close in your hard position, that's when they have the opportunity to push at you. In this circumstance, if you're playing like medium or towards the front with support, they can't push you. Like in the last game, I was at the front in the thick of it with two medium tanks. They can't push me by myself in that circumstance. And in this circumstance, I'm going to be more second line, but still at the front, but not enough so they can push me. They're at a distance where if they come at me, then they're going to be coming at me and taking two shots in the process. They're going to be two shots which pretty much tidy up the vast majority of hit points on any tank you come across, even tier 10s, and that's part of the reason I've put only tier 10 replays in this video, because this tank against tier 8s, well, it doesn't break a sweat, and against tier 10s, it's more than capable. On the off chance that you're seriously struggling this tank, there is a recommendation, and it's pretty damn easy. Go get a T34, or if you've already got one, go play in the T34. It's the same playstyle, just a tier lower, so you're facing tier 7s instead of tier 8, 9 and 10. You're facing tier 7, 8 and 9. So the targets are that little bit easier to deal with. And once you've got a playstyle down of the T34, you're gonna land the T30 with absolutely no issues. Because even in stock, guys, like I said, it's pretty much the same tank, but with 1,000 more DPM. Or, from another perspective, if you don't have a T34 and you're wondering whether or not you'll enjoy it, well, if you're looking for a moneymaker and you do enjoy driving the T30, then the T34 is a tank for you. And like I said earlier, these things have been in the game since the dawn. The T34 is just old school cool. I'm happy with this shot, by the way. He disappears off, and as he comes back on, he's just burning for the last little bits of his hit points. You've probably heard me say 1,000 times in videos, I love this tank, I really enjoy this tank, blah blah blah. I do say it a lot. That's because I've played every tank in the game. Yet, there's certain tanks I just keep going back to. This line was one of the first lines I ever played in Blitz. I think it was like the third or fourth line. And yet I keep playing this tank because this tank is glorious fun and it just doesn't get old. And again, something I mentioned in my previous T30 video I did a long time ago, I hated the E4 when I got it because I was expecting a bigger, tougher, nastier T30, and it was quite the opposite. I just thought it pales in comparison to a T30. It doesn't feel as flexible, and that's because it has a slightly different playstyle. And when you try to play a T110 E4 in a similar fashion to a T30, the E4 sucks in that circumstance. So it does have a different playstyle. But when you go into it, after trying or enjoying this playstyle so much, the E4 doesn't feel as good as this. Once you get used to the E4's playstyle though, I think it's a very capable tank. E4 something, I think I got 700-800 battles in that tank nowadays. Which isn't huge in comparison to some of my other tanks. But it's definitely up there in terms of fan favourites. I might do that one day, just make my top 10 favourite tanks. They're not the greatest tanks in Blitz, they're not the most reliable tanks in Blitz, but they're my favourites. I might also do a top 10 my worst tanks in Blitz. I think that might be more interesting. Okay, this is what I mentioned about the excess gun depression. So, I can't shoot at him in this circumstance, but... oh, hang on. When I go back here, can't shoot at the gun. And here's another... sorry, at the hatch on top. Here's another example. So I'm backing off just a little bit, so you can't see the hull. The only thing you can see is that massive mantlet. And then once he's shot, then I push forward to get my shot in return. It's a nightmare to penetrate this tank when it's at that sort of angle. You're hiding your hull, you're hiding the weaknesses on top. It's godlike there. Potentially a glaringly obvious thing to point out, but you'd be surprised how many times that saved me extra hit points and kept me alive. But that's it for this video. Hope you have enjoyed it. Just wanted to make a quick one on the T30 because, again, it's one of those tanks which is up there for me. So thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.